This is mainly going to be an informative video on Tulsa, Oklahoma, and what happened in the race riot of 1921. And this topic was suggested by Brandon Tucker, so thank you for the suggestion. As a bit of a backstory, Oklahoma became a state in 1907, and a lot of people from the South and other places rushed to move there and to claim the land. And this new place represented hope and a place for a fresh start for many people, especially people who were former slaves after the Civil War. And after the state was created, the first bill that was passed was a bill to segregate the people of Oklahoma. Tulsa was one of these heavily segregated cities, which led to the black citizens there had to create their own businesses and accommodations because of Jim Crow laws. The white citizens didn't let the black citizens use anything of theirs or shop in their stores, so the black citizens had to make everything of their own. It started with one grocery store, then there was drugstores, 2 theaters, 15 doctors' offices, libraries, dance halls, hotels, cleaners, 2 black schools, and I think there was 108 black-owned businesses in total by 1921. Also began to be more populated and was divided into 2 parts. The north side of the Frisco Railroad tracks was it was much smaller, but it was for the black residents of Tulsa, and the south side, which was a lot larger, was for the white residents. There was a neighborhood in northern Tulsa called Greenwood, which is where all of the black residents lived. The white residents called it Little Africa, and it reached a population of 10,000 by 1921. It was centered on a street called Greenwood Avenue, which ran north from the Frisco tracks for over a mile, and it was one of the few streets in Tulsa that wasn't shared by the white and black residents, and the black residents took pride in that, and they were happy that there was something that they didn't have to share with the white residents. During the oil boom, the Ida Glen oil range in Tulsa made a lot of people there very prosperous and rich, and it was mainly the white residents that were becoming rich from the oil business, but the money also trickled down to the black residents. There was millionaires that lived in Greenwood, and a lot of black people would move there to kind of grow their business or collaborate with other great-minded people. That Greenwood Street was also known as Black Wall Street because it was so well known for being a hub for businesses and black-owned businesses. It was so prosperous that white oil men will go there to the banks in Greenwood and borrow money, large amounts of money, in order to keep their businesses afloat. There was about 3,200 KKK members that also resided in Tulsa, southern Tulsa at that time, and they had a huge support system for pretty much everybody in southern Tulsa. A lot of the police members, the legislation, and the politicians were all majority either supported the KKK or they were Klansmen themselves. The KKK would have 4 to 5 hour parades downtown. People would show up from out of town just to show up to this parade and support them. A lot of poor white Army veterans would come home to Tulsa and see these prosperous, rich black Americans, and they would feel jealous. And then the KKK would milk this resentment and hatred and jealousy that the white men had for these successful black people. And the poor white men felt that the country owed them something because they had gone to war. The KKK was very well funded by the rich white people of Tulsa, and they even had their own headquarters. Many other areas of the South were similar to Tulsa, where there was segregation and a heavy influence by the KKK. And many people believe that if the race riot didn't happen in Tulsa, it would have happened somewhere else. On May 30th, 1921, a 19-year-old boy named Dick Rowland is working downtown in southern Tulsa for his white boss, Shining Shoes. He needed to use the washroom, and at that time, in that area, there was only one washroom that was designated for black people, and in order to access this washroom, he had to go up an elevator. So he goes to the elevator, and there's this 17-year-old white girl named Sarah. She's working the elevator, and nobody's exactly sure of what happened, but supposedly, as he's getting onto the elevator, he trips and falls onto the girl, and she starts screaming for help. So rumors started to fly, and then they snowballed, and then by the next morning, newspapers were publishing stories about this incident, and they were insinuating that he had raped her and that he should be hung. And so Roland was arrested and put in prison, and then an angry mob of white men started to gather around that prison, demanding for them to release him so that they could hang Roland. The sheriff refused to let him go, and once news of this reached Greenwood, there was a group of armed black men that formed and went down to the jail to try to help defend the boy. And once they were sure that the boy was safe, they went back home. And the white men saw these armed black men, and so they went home, got their guns, and then came back. Around nighttime, there was about 2,000 armed white men that were gathered outside of the jail, still demanding to have the boy hanged. And then the group of armed black men came back downtown to defend the boy. And this time, an argument broke out between the two groups, and things got heated, shots were fired, and then the biggest race riot in American history began. On May 31st, once the riot had began, the policemen completely abandoned their duties, and then they joined the white mob and arrested any and all black men that they saw, claiming that it was for their own protection when they sent them to detention facilities. I had started downtown Tulsa and moved north, and a huge portion of the black community had been locked up and arrested. So that left thousands of white citizens to basically shoot or arrest or steal from all of the black community in Greenwood. As the mob moved their way north, they burned and looted every single black home and business that there was. They stole jewelry, clothing, furniture, savings from the banks. The KKK surrounded the town so that fleeing black citizens couldn't escape, and they cut off the telephone lines and the telegraph lines. They blocked the train station, and the police wanted nothing to do with controlling the chaos. People saw airplanes flying overhead, and they reported that the planes were dropping bombs or kerosene onto the neighborhood to build the flames. And when people who were fleeing, who survived, they were fleeing to get out of the town. On the outskirts of town, there was this big hill, and on top of the hill, they saw KKK members with machine guns aimed at the citizens, and they just started firing. The whole riot lasted approximately 17 hours from May 31st to June 1st, throughout the night and into the next morning. That whole time, nobody did anything to help or to stop it, and a few of the white citizens hid their black employees in their basements, but to me that was more of a protect your money move rather than a humanitarian move. No one seems to know exactly the number of deaths that there was, but some people say upwards of 300. Some say 600 black people died. There was 6,000 people jailed, and about 10,000 people were left homeless. People remember seeing truckloads of dead black bodies being carried away to be disposed of or to be buried. The morning of June 1st, the governor was notified what was happening, and so he sent in the Oklahoma National Guard, and they declared martial law. They threatened to shoot anybody that had a weapon, and they set up internment compounds for the to protect the black refugees. And then the white rioters were just sent home. Nobody was punished for anything that they did. No white people who were shooting, killing the black people went to jail. They all just went home and then went back to work the next morning. Basically, overnight, the citizens of Greenwood went from being prosperous and successful to homeless and left with nothing. And the whole thing was covered up by the government and omitted from history. You can't even find the articles in those newspapers that talked about the alleged rape. No one could get anything from insurance because there was no coverage for riot damages, and the federal and state government didn't have any programs in place to compensate for a breakdown in law and order. Remaining refugees migrated to other cities and they had to start all over, while the white citizens remained unpunished and miserable. Greenwood was rebuilt over time, but it would never return to the glamorous and prosperous black community that it once was. So my question to you is, do you feel that there could be a modern day Black Wall Street in 2017, or do you feel that the same incident of 1921 would happen again? Do you feel that the black community in America is strong enough to only support black businesses and nobody else, so that we generate more black millionaires? I hope that you enjoyed this video and found it at least a little bit informative, and please subscribe if you want to see my future videos. Thank you so much for watching.